but it's in the middle of a section of teaching that he is referring to the Corinthians. Corinth was one of the early churches on Paul's second missionary journey. As he went about preaching, they believed, they obeyed the gospel, they were baptized for their sins. But they had a lot of problems. And in the early church, they didn't have the Bible, the New Testament. They just had the Old Testament. And in order for the church to grow and be strong, there were things called spiritual gifts that were given to the early apostles and the disciples so the church would grow. They had the laying on of hands, they had the speaking in tongues, they had even miraculous wisdom. There were a great number of things that were early in the church. And when the people at Corinth, some of them received, say, speaking in tongues, they thought they were more important than some of the others who had other traits, other wisdom things. So Paul wrote to them so they could understand what is greatest, that which lasts beyond that temporary first century, because the Bible did come and all those special miracles and gifts were done away with. And so tonight, let's briefly look at that chapter and gain some very valuable lessons. Paul says, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, they were gifts. But if I don't have love, I've become a sounding brass, just a noise, or a tinkling cymbal. I'm just a noise. Even though I could speak in a foreign language I've never heard before, or speak in a language that I couldn't even decipher, it took another person to decipher for me. He says, I'm no better than just a nonsensical sound. And though I have the gift of prophecy, that is foretelling the future, and also preaching, and understanding all mysteries, and the work in the early church had a lot of mysteries to it because God was making known his wisdom of bringing the Gentiles and the Jews together and making one family out of them. And though I have all knowledge, though I have all faith, so that I could remove a mountain and have not charity, done nothing. If I could say to a mountain, get up and be gone. If I could have that power is worth nothing if it isn't there with love. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profits me nothing. If I make the ultimate sacrifice in life for someone else, if there's no love there, it's not worth a thing. And then he defines God's love that should be within all of us, or being developed in all of us. It's called charity, because when the King James Version was translated in 1611, charity carried with it the complement of love that concerned itself with others' good. Love suffers long, and the word long means that it perseveres. It's patient. It's kind. That means it understands other people. Love envies not. It doesn't want what someone else has because we don't have it. Love vaunteth not itself. It does not think that I have to put myself first or I'll be thought less of. It's not puffed up. It doesn't walk around as self-important. I'm somebody and better than everybody else. It does not behave itself unseemly. It's not crude or rude. It seeks not her own. It's not selfish. It's not easily provoked. That is, it's not soon made angry. It's patient. It thinks no evil. It's not suspicious. It doesn't go about trying to understand why people do what they do and assigning to them a motive that in our minds we think understands what they're doing when it may be wrong altogether. It rejoices not in iniquity. It's not happy when other people get what's coming to them. It's not happy when others get hurt. But it rejoices in the truth. It's happy when the truth is spoken and people believe and obey it. It bears all things. That, in other words, it stands up under the pressure of living. It believes all things. In other words, it's not suspicious. It hopes all things. It looks for the good in things. It endures all things. It's capable of standing up under the worst trials and tribulations of life. Love never fails. You can count on it. But whether there be prophecies, they shall fail, because they'll be done away with. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. They're no longer needed. Whether there be knowledge that is spiritual, special knowledge, not from God's word, because it would have been written by then, but in the time it's written, it will be necessary for the special kind. It shall vanish away. We know in part, and we prophesy in part. And then it says, but when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. In other words, after the first century, all those special miraculous powers, tongues and the laying on of hands and the special knowledge, even special faith, some knowledge and wisdom, that'll all be done away. It'll come to the natural source. But when I was a child, he says now, he's likening the growth of the church as an infant being born and then having to grow up. I spake as a child, I understood as a child. I even thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly. In other words, Paul saying, I'm still in that stage just before manhood in the church. But then face to face, that is when that's gone, I'll be face to face with the reality of the church in its full form and development. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also I am known. And now abides faith, hope, charity, or love. These three. But the greatest of these is charity. Now what do we carry home with us tonight from the reading of these 13 verses from the 13th chapter? That the greatest thing in life is love. The Bible tells us God is love. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that we may not perish but have everlasting life. So therefore we should in our lives cultivate love. Love for our friends, love for our enemies, love for our family, love for God. And that means that we put others ahead of ourselves. That means that we listen to God and that we obey him. And in that process we become more like him. For after all, Paul wrote these verses, to tell them they need to grow up in the church. They need to act like grown disciples with love for all. How much love do we have for God? God has spelled it out for us. Are we learning and cultivating and living it in our lives? There may be some here tonight who need to be baptized, or those who need the prayers of the church. If you find yourself in either one of these two cases, we'll be glad to assist you if you come while we stand and sing.